Welcome to a new edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson, and man, we have some really good questions this week, so I'm going to dive right into them. First one comes from Texas Tech Austin, who says, expectations, where should they be? Minus the Kool-Aid drinkers and the pessimists on both ends of the spectrum there. He says, for both football and basketball this season. Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think, I'm truly always trying to be honest with y'all about in terms of what my expectations are for these teams and how I think the seasons will play out. And quite honestly, we're really close in both football and basketball most of the time. I think maybe the last couple of years we overestimated the team where we thought they would be closer to the higher end of the Big 12 rather than just kind of like the middle of the pack, not the bottom end, but middle of the pack that they've been the last couple of years. So there's that. But for the most part, both myself, Joe, everybody, Okie, Red Raider, Steven Chapman, we've been pretty close. And I try and call it like I see it. So this is how I see the football team. They've improved at quarterback tremendously, not just Tyler Shuck, but certainly Tyler Shuck. They improved at tackle just with TJ Storment at left tackle. That's an improvement over what they had last year. On defense, they're a veteran group. They return a lot of players, some because of the COVID extra year of eligibility, but some just some guys who developed in the program, whether it be like a Tony Bradford and Jalen Hutchins up front, or like I said, the seniors getting a extra senior year, like Colin Schooler, Rico Jeffers, those guys. They're really good players. And then in the secondary, they've really hit the portal hard and added some veteran players, guys who have started at other Power 5 schools, like Marquise Waters, Rashad Williams, Malik Dunlap. All those guys have started multiple, I think all but one of them, double-digit Power 5 games and played well. Marquise Waters was borderline All-ACC his time, captain, very good player, versatile safety back there. So then you start adding guys like Reggie Pearson at safety, who was one of Wisconsin's best players a couple years ago. He's had some injury concerns or question marks, but Texas Tech has assured me that he's been cleared by their doctors. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think they have Texas Tech has given itself a real opportunity to have a very good season upcoming. That combined with their schedule, I mean, that Houston game looms large in the season opener at NRG. You win that game, you should start 3-0. And then you get into conference, and I think there's some really winnable games. Obviously, Kansas, Baylor. I think Kansas State, they're good, but it's a winnable game. TCU, same thing. And then Oklahoma State, well, and West Virginia. Coach Wells has played both those teams pretty tough. I mean, obviously, he's 2-0 against West Virginia, but I think he split against Oklahoma State and played them tough. So, and I think Tech has won 2 of the last 3 games against Oklahoma State. So, overall, I think you have some opportunities there. And then Texas, we'll have to see, obviously, with the new coach. But, I mean, you should have won that game last year. And then they have some question marks. And then Oklahoma is what Oklahoma is. I mean, if you win that game, it legitimizes your whole season. But it's hard to see that happening given, the team they have and everything. So, I see 7 wins. I think 6 to 8 is what we're talking about. 8 would be surprising to me. 6 or 7 would not. I think under 6, then you have to start really thinking about what's the program doing here. I do like the roster in terms of how they've improved it, how they've gone about doing it. I've written several stories and talked about in these videos about how they have not mortgaged the future by going to the portal. That's thinking from 5-10 years ago. In terms of transfers, the new eligibility, new transfer rules, all that from the NCAA, where you get the one-time transfer without having to sit out, has changed the game. So many of the guys that Texas Tech has added have multiple seasons of eligibility remaining, but they've been developed at big-time Power 5 football programs, and some of them have a lot of seasoning, have actually played. So they're ready to go. I mean, they're getting talent that they normally can't sign from the high school ranks. So, but then, their 2021 class, in terms of the guys that they did sign, I like. Really high up their board, the coach's board. So, they need to get going on the 2022 class for sure, but that's not what you asked about. I think I think 7 wins is where I'm at with football. Now basketball, it's harder to gauge. Now almost everybody that they've signed, I think everybody except for Daniel Batcho is in town. Texas Tech recently posted a picture, a bunch of videos of them working out the Womble and all that stuff. And I like the guys. I like the roster they've assembled. I don't think it's like a win the Big 12 type roster necessarily, but I think it's a compete, go to the NCAA tournament, very good season under Mark Adams type roster. Again, hit the portal hard, brought in guys who, guys who have done it, double-digit scores at the Division I level, guys that are hungry. So I like it. I think you get Daniel Batcho in I think he's in France right now. I think he's supposed to be in maybe even this weekend or sometime next week. He adds some size, see where he is health-wise, and you start feeling really good about your roster. You need to add a couple guys. We'll talk about that later in the mailbag, but what if Shannon comes back? We don't, I don't expect him to, but if he does, then you start pushing towards the top tier. Maybe you're not right there in terms of winning the Big 12 championship, but you combine all the experience coming back, guys like McCullough, who's borderline, getting up in the first 2 teams all conference with his versatility. Shannon, same thing. He'll be a year older, and that guy is just, I'm just a huge fan of his. You start looking at this roster and you start saying, okay, well, does Mark Adams really have the chops? We think he does. We think he was the secret sauce in terms of the defense. We know he's had a lot of success at different levels of being a head coach. But will he do it at Texas Tech with this roster? And I think he will. Without Shannon, I say middle of the pack again. I think you're an 8 or 9 seed, and go to the tournament and see what happens. With Shannon, like I said, I think you're probably top 4 in the conference, probably around a 5 or 6 seed, and you can make a real run in the tournament, and it could be really interesting. So I know that's a lot, depending on Shannon's decision, but I think he's that much of a difference maker. I think he's just a really good player. So we'll have to see, but I think either way, I really like what they've done, given the situation, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You combine that with nobody wants to come play Tech here in Lubbock, and it should be full crowds, and of course that Texas game here in Lubbock is going to be just amazing. So I'm really looking forward to basketball. I'm really looking forward to both football and basketball season, to be honest. I think there's going to be a lot of winning in Raiderland, so it should be fun. Lance 4523 asks, do I think Tech will have a full house for at least one football game this year? Well, the schedule's not great. There's no OU, there's no UT, there's no Power 5 non-conference game either. So that makes it a little difficult. But I do think Tech's going to start 3-0, and they might start 4-1, actually. You do that, the ball starts rolling, word gets around town. I think, I don't think there's going to be like a COVID scare. I'm here in Lubbock. People aren't afraid of COVID anymore. I think people are going to be looking to get out and go back to the Jones again. I think people even from the Dallas and the Austin and Houston's will be like, you know what? I don't want to miss out. They look like they're turning things around. This Tyler Shuck's pretty good. Their defense, hey, it might actually be pretty good. Let's go out and see them. So I think, one of these conference games will probably be a sellout, and it'll be maybe middle of the season, probably somewhere in October. So, I think there's a good chance that at least one of the games are sold out at the Jones. All right, OBX Raider wants to know my thoughts on the JUCO offensive lineman. He means Kingsley Ugwu. What do you think Tech's chances are with Ugwu? Well, I think they're really good, actually. I interviewed him. There's a story posted with our interview on Inside the Red Raiders, and basically what he told me is, he's got the national championship this weekend for Hutch, and then I asked him, hey, where are you going to be visiting? Because he has several offers, and he says he didn't think he'll have time to visit. So the season ends this weekend. He doesn't think he'll have time to visit, and I asked if he had a timeline for when he wants to make a decision. He said maybe next week. So, and he also said that things have been pretty quiet other than the Tech offer and him hearing from Tech. So, you put it all together, I'm no detective, but it sure sounds like he likes Texas Tech and that this all could be wrapped up pretty soon. And his plan is to get here, or at least coach the offensive line coach and Texas Tech the plan for him is to join the team this summer. So, and he'll have 4 years to play 3 seasons in terms of eligibility now, and for him to play right tackle. So the only other factor would be, what about Texas Tech? I mean, I know they just offered him, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's an automatic take. But I've talked to people who would know and have said that he would be a take. So really, that was the final piece for me. As long as things change, it's recruiting. Somebody may pop in there, or he may say, "Oh, I want to hold off a little bit." But it sure seems like he's going to come in and compete at right tackle. So if he's going to do so, he needs to come in the summer and get ready and get adjusted to the speed of these type of athletes, at the Power 5 level and all that. And I don't know if he starts, but I think he will push Caleb Rogers at right tackle. So I think Caleb Rogers might be more talented, but this guy, Kingsley, might be more ready right now. I don't know. It's good to have depth in competition, because there's going to be injuries. Things are going to happen. So they need more offensive linemen. There's no doubt. And I think there's a very good chance with Kingsley Ugwu that he ends up a Red Raider pretty soon here. Tornado Watch says, what game or games do I think are circled or should be circled on the Red Raiders football calendar this season? Yeah, I mean, to me, the obvious one, I hate to keep saying this, but it's the truth to me. The season opener against Houston. The other 2 non-conference games, Stephen F. Austin and Florida International, I mean, Tech should win those games, or what are we even talking about? So if you beat Houston at NRG, that's a 6 p.m. on ESPN primetime game. Great opportunity to show off the Double T brand, all that. You win that game against Houston, and then start 3-0. I mean, you really get the ball rolling on the season. So to me, that season opening game against Houston is just critical, and also for recruiting, everything. But then, I think some other games, I think it's pretty obvious that you should always have circled. And don't get me wrong, UT and OU should be, but I mean, you really go against these other teams in terms of on the recruiting trail more, and these games are like the critical games in my mind every year. Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State, and then maybe West Virginia, but definitely TCU, Baylor, and Oklahoma State. I mean, that's who you really compete against the most. I mean, I think Tech and Oklahoma State, it's almost like every other critical recruit, it's like, it seems like it's down to them 2, and then TCU and Baylor's in there. So those games are huge. I mean, they're huge for just in the season, and they're huge for recruiting every year. So those are the ones I would always have circled. And then, of course, that Houston game in the opener, to me, it's just, anything could happen either way. If they lose it, yes, they could come back and still have a good season. If they win it doesn't guarantee anything. But it just seems, for a number of reasons, to be critical. And then, not to mention all the guys that left your team, that transferred from Tech there. Keyshawn Carter, Tajon Henry, go down the list. Just several guys. So it's a big game. I think that Houston game would be the number 1 game circled on the schedule if it were me. All right, Raider Grad 06 has a fun question. He says, what would be your favorite game to play were you to come on down when the Price is Right comes to the Buddy Holly Hall in October? He says he would choose Pinko or the golf putt. I thought about this, but to me, this was pretty simple, because I love Price is Right, especially when I was a kid, I don't know, it was like my babysitter or whatever. I remember like watching that as a kid growing up a lot, and, even when I got older. But I haven't really watched it recently, but of course Bob Barker was the man. The dice game. I always loved those big dice, I always wanted to play that game. So that's what I'd want to play for sure. All right, Raider Power 81 says, most importantly, how's your wife doing? He says, our prayers will continue to be with your family. Yeah, thank you for asking. I keep saying it's been an emotional roller coaster, and that's just the best phrase I could use. Since I last said something on one of these mailbags, I mean, she's gone back to the ICU and survived that, and like even nurses and doctors said not many patients survive the ICU twice, or I think they use the term graduate. But yeah, it's been, every day is like an epic, heavy day, good or bad. I will say, as of taping this, she stacked several good days. She's out of ICU, doing much better. We have our eyes on the prize in terms of getting her to, physical therapy rehab facility, getting her back on her feet, getting the treatment she needs to, prolong and improve her life. So the support that y'all have shown has gone a long way towards it. On another note, I'm sure y'all have noticed my beard is gone. She begged me to shave it. She said I could grow it right back, which after seeing this mug again with clean shaven, I already working towards growing it back, but she said she wanted to see my face again without the beard. So of course I complied. I mean, like, that's something I can control, so I did it. But she offered that I can grow it back and she wouldn't mind, and I'm certainly already starting back towards that. But no, every day has its new challenges and everything, and is very heavy. But like I said, so much support. I've been humbled by it. I mean, so many ways, both positively and negatively, our lives have been changed forever, of course, by this. And there's a before and after with our family's lives and everything. And one of the big chapters is just y'all's support. So thank you so much for asking and for all that support. J. Luke Raid wants to know, will Texas Tech land a starting quality big man this summer? That's assuming Daniel Bacho is not, because I think potential-wise he is. But there's so many questions in terms of his health, it's fair to ask. And then I think you say, well, is Marcus Santos Silva really a big man? And I get the other side of it. I think he is like a power 5, legitimate power forward type of guy. He might play center for you at 6'7" in college, and obviously not like in the pros. But I get other people's definitions of what a real big man is different, and I'm not arguing against that. So by that definition of a 6'9", 6'10", or bigger, taller guy, yeah, I think there's a chance. This staff has done a really good job of finding guys. First off, keeping it quiet right up until they were past the butt sniffing stage, as I like to say, and they've been really good about bringing in guys like Daniel Bacho. We knew about him maybe like a couple of days before it got hot and heavy. That's it, and that's not normally how it has been. So they've done a real good job of finding guys and keeping it quiet until it got close. So it'll be interesting to see what guys, the first guy that comes to mind, if you count him as a legit big man, which I do, is Bryson Williams. The Tech is still involved with him. That would be obviously ginormous. He's a legitimate scorer, rebounder, and all that. But who is out there that we don't know of yet? Obviously I can't answer that. But I think they do want to add one more legitimate, like, rim protector type. And I think they want to add one more guard. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about doing that. And to answer your question, yes, I do believe they will add another big man. The good thing about Santos Silva's scholarship is that it doesn't count towards the limit. I think, J. Luke, the way you cover or the way you follow recruiting, you probably know that. But just for those out there that Santos Silva is a returning senior, like a super senior, but he's returning to the same team, it doesn't count towards the scholarship limit. So that's pretty interesting, man. Those especially, well, in all sports, but certainly in basketball, those scholarships are so valuable. So to be able to have an extra one, if need be, is just great. I think they'll take full. They'll use every one of their scholarships. I'm confident in that. So with that, I just want to say great questions from everyone as always. Thank you for watching, and until next time.